The ship. The fog came in around 4 in the afternoon, thick and sudden, rolling across the water like something alive. I'd been fishing since dawn, hadn't caught much, wasn't expecting to. The fish had been scarce all summer, and I'd stopped caring about the catch months ago, maybe years. I came out here because the sea didn't ask questions. The sea didn't look at me with that mixture of pity and discomfort that people on land couldn't hide. The sea didn't know about Korea, didn't know about Chosin or Incheon, or any of the places where I'd left pieces of myself scattered in the snow and mud. The sea just was, and so was I. I cut the engine and let the boat drift. No point running in fog this thick. I couldn't see 30 feet in any direction, and the last thing I needed was to run aground on some rocks or plow into another vessel. Better to wait it out. I had a thermos of coffee, half a sandwich, enough cigarettes to last the night if it came to that. I lit a Camel and watched the fog swirl around me. That's when I heard the music. It came from somewhere ahead of me, faint at first, then clearer. A string quartet playing something I almost recognized, something elegant, something old. I stood up in my boat, squinting into the gray, and I saw her. A ship, not a fishing vessel, not a freighter. A ship, the kind you see in old photographs, the kind that carried wealthy passengers across the Atlantic in years before the world went mad. 3 stacks, white hull, brass railings that gleamed even through the fog. Lights blazing from every window, warm and golden, like a floating palace. She was maybe 200 yards away, drifting, same as me. No engine sound, just the music, drifting across the water. I should have been afraid, should have been confused at least. Ships like this didn't exist anymore. They'd been replaced by steel behemoths and diesel engines and the brutal efficiency of the modern age. This was something from another time, something that had no business being here in 1962, off the coast of Massachusetts. But I wasn't afraid. I was curious. I started my engine and motored toward her. There was a ladder hanging from her side, almost like she'd been expecting me. I tied my boat off and climbed. The rungs were brass, polished smooth, and when I reached the deck, the wood beneath my feet was spotless. No salt stains, no weathering, like she'd been launched yesterday instead of decades ago. The music was louder now, coming from inside, through doors that stood open, spilling light and warmth into the fog. I walked toward it. The room was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling painted with angels and clouds. The walls were paneled in dark wood, carved with patterns too intricate to follow. A bar stretched along one side, bottles of amber and gold catching the light, and a bartender in a white jacket polished glasses with the practiced ease of a man who'd been doing it forever. And people, dozens of them, men in evening dress, women in gowns that swept the floor. They stood in clusters, talking and laughing, champagne flutes in hand. Couples danced in the center of the room, moving to the string quartet that played on a small raised stage. The air smelled of perfume and tobacco and something else, something I couldn't name, something that smelled like peace. No one looked at me with suspicion. No one asked who I was or how I'd gotten there. A waiter appeared at my elbow with a glass of champagne. "Welcome, sir." I took it, drank. It was the best champagne I'd ever tasted. I started. "Please, sir, enjoy yourself. The bar is complimentary. The kitchen is open. We're so glad you could join us." He disappeared into the crowd before I could ask any of the questions forming in my mind. I drank more champagne. I started to walk. I played cards with men who spoke in accents I couldn't quite place. They were kind, easy. They joked about politics and sports and women, but nothing they said made complete sense to me. The names were wrong, the references outdated. I laughed anyway. It felt good to laugh. I couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed. "You seem tired," one of them said. He was older than the others, his silver hair and face lined by years of good living. His eyes were warm, kind, like my father's had been before the depression broke him. "I am," I admitted. "I've been tired for a long time." "We all were," he said, "before we came here." I didn't ask what he meant. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I danced with a woman who smelled like lavender. She didn't ask about the scars on my hands, didn't ask why I flinched when someone dropped a glass and it shattered on the floor. She just held me, moved with me, and smiled like I was the only person in the room. "What's your name?" she asked. John Baylor." "That's a good name." She rested her head on my shoulder. "You have sad eyes, John Baylor." "I've seen sad things." "Haven't we all?" She pulled back, looked at me. "But not here. Here, there's only this. The music, the dancing, the champagne that never runs out." "How long have you been here?" She thought about it. "I don't know. Does it matter?" I looked around the room, at the people laughing, at the couples dancing, at the waiters gliding through the crowd with trays of champagne and canapes and everything a person could want. "No," I said, "I don't suppose it does." I found the older man on the deck. He was smoking a cigar, leaning against the railing, looking out at the fog. My boat bobbed in the water below, tied to the ladder, small and shabby compared to the grandeur of the ship. "Beautiful night," he said, without turning around. "I can't see anything." "That's what makes it beautiful." He took a long drag, let the smoke curl into the gray. "Nothing to see, nothing to worry about. Just the ship, just us." I stood beside him, lit a cigarette of my own. "How often do you do this?" I asked. "The party, the dancing, it must cost a fortune." He smiled. "We do only this." "What do you mean?" "This is all we do, all we've ever done. The party never ends, John. The music never stops. The champagne never runs out." I shook my head. "That's not possible. You have to leave eventually. Go home, go to work." "No." He turned to look at me. His eyes were still kind, but there was something else in them now, something older than kindness. "We never leave the ship." I stared at him, looked back at the party through the windows, the laughter, the dancing, the endless, effortless joy. "You live here permanently." "Live isn't quite the right word." He took another drag. "But yes, permanently." The silence stretched between us. I looked at my boat, at the gray water, at the fog that had swallowed the rest of the world. I thought about what was waiting for me out there. An empty apartment in a town that didn't want me. A job that barely paid the bills. Nights spent staring at the ceiling, remembering the sound of artillery and the screams of men I couldn't save. Days spent pretending I was okay when everyone could see I wasn't. No one waiting for me. No one who would notice if I didn't come back. "I should be going," I said. My voice sounded hollow. Even I didn't believe it. "Why?" I stopped. "I don't have anything." "No." He wasn't asking. He knew. "You don't have anywhere to go, no one to go to. That's why you came out here in the first place, isn't it? The sea doesn't ask questions." I didn't answer. Didn't have to. "You can't stay here for your whole life," he said. "That's true. You couldn't afford it." He paused, reached into his jacket. "But your afterlife?" He held out a gun. It was beautiful, pearl handle, double barrels, old and elegant, like everything else on this ship. "It does the job," he said. "Quick and painless." He met my eyes. "But don't miss." He pressed the gun into my hands, then he turned and walked back inside, the door closing softly behind him. I stood alone on the deck, The gun was heavier than I expected. The pearl was smooth against my palm. Through the windows, I could see them dancing, laughing, living, if that was the right word, in a way I hadn't lived since before the war. Maybe since ever. I thought about Chosin, the cold so deep it stopped your blood, the Chinese coming in waves, endless waves, and all we could do was kill them and keep killing them and watch our friends die and keep fighting because there was nothing else to do. I thought about coming home, the parades that felt like lies, the way people looked at me, looked through me, like they could see the death on my hands and wanted nothing to do with it. I thought about the years since, the jobs, the drinking, the women who stayed for a while and then didn't, the slow narrowing of my world until all that was left was a boat and the sea and the silence that never felt like peace. And I thought about the people inside, their laughter, their joy, the way they danced like nothing had ever hurt them, like nothing ever would. I raised the gun, pressed it to my temple, felt the cold metal against my skin. I inhaled, exhaled, squeezed. Darkness, then light. I was standing on the deck, but something was different. I looked down at myself and saw a suit, cream-colored, tailored, fitting me like it had been made for my body. My hands were smooth, no scars, no calluses, no evidence of the life I'd lived. The fog had lifted. The sea stretched out in every direction, silver and still, and the sky above was the soft gray of perpetual twilight. Beautiful, peaceful. The door behind me opened. The older man stepped out. He was smiling. "A fine choice," he said. "Welcome." I looked at him, at the ship, at the world I'd left behind, the world that wasn't there anymore, that maybe had never been there. That didn't matter now. "What's your name?" I asked. "Edward." He extended his hand. "Edward Ashworth. We're going to be great friends, John. We have all the time in the world." I shook his hand. It was warm, real. We walked back inside together. The string quartet was playing something I almost recognized. The chandeliers sparkled. A waiter offered me a glass of champagne, and I took it, and it tasted like the best thing I'd ever had. A woman in a lavender gown caught my eye across the room. She smiled. I smiled back. And somewhere out in the fog, a ship sailed on. Lights blazing, music playing, laughter echoing across the water. Sailing nowhere and everywhere. Sailing forever. And John Baylor was finally home.